My boss fired me to promote his girlfriend, so I took down the company. Legally. My name is Jerry Washington. Most people cry when they get fired. I just looked at my watch. I knew that in exactly 48 hours, the $40 million merger my boss was banking on wouldn't just fail, it would vanish. My boss didn't just fire his best senior analyst. He fired the only person who knew where the bodies were buried. And all so his girlfriend, a woman who thought PII was a brand of bottled water, could have my corner office. He wanted a kingdom for his queen? Fine. I'm about to burn the castle down, legally. I had spent 6 years at Miller and Associates. I was the first one in, the last one out, and the only one who actually understood the proprietary tax shelter algorithms we built for our Tier 1 clients. I wasn't just a cog, I was the grease, keeping the entire machine from grinding into a halt. Then came Sarah. She consulted for 3 months before my boss, Marcus, decided she was executive material. Never mind that she'd never passed a Series 7 or held a spreadsheet that wasn't for a bachelorette party budget. The office air changed. Meetings became performances. Professionalism was replaced by whispered giggles behind closed doors. Monday morning, 9:02 a.m. I walked in with the compliance reports for the Q3 audit. Marcus didn't even look up from his phone. "Have a seat," he said. The tone was off. It wasn't the usual, "let's get to work" bark. It was the sound of a man who had already convinced himself he was doing something smart when he was actually doing something suicidal. "We're restructuring," he started. The classic corporate lie. "Sarah has some visionary ideas for the department's direction. We feel your traditional approach is holding back the synergy we need for the merger." I looked at Sarah. She was smirking, literally leaning back in my chair. "So," I said, my voice flatter than a dead EKG, "you're firing me 2 days before the SEC audit, 1 week before the Carrington merger closes." "We've got it handled," Marcus snapped. "Hand over your key card. Sarah will oversee your files. You have 10 minutes to clear your desk." As I walked to my desk, the panic I expected to feel didn't come. Instead, a cold, crystalline clarity washed over me. They didn't realize it. Marcus had been so busy mentoring Sarah that he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I didn't just manage the files, I was the legally designated compliance officer for the entire firm. Under the Dodd-Frank Act and the specific bylaws of our corporate charter, a change in senior oversight during an active audit without a 30-day disclosure period wasn't just unprofessional. It was a massive regulatory violation. And then there were the shadow folders. Marcus had been taking shortcuts with client distributions to fund his lavish lifestyle with Sarah. He thought he'd hidden the trail. He thought I was just a loyal soldier who wouldn't notice a few missing decimal points. He was wrong. I had everything. Every email, every diverted wire transfer, every creative accounting entry. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I packed my succulent, my mechanical keyboard, and a single thumb drive I had kept in my drawer for a rainy day. As I walked toward the elevator, Sarah called out, "Don't worry, I'll take good care of your clients." I pressed the down button and looked her right in the eyes. "I really hope you do, Sarah, because by Wednesday, they're going to have a lot of questions for the FBI. The doors closed. I didn't go home. I drove straight to a payphone, old school, no digital footprint, and placed a call to the one person Marcus feared more than God, the senior investigator at the SEC. Tuesday morning. Most people in my position would have stayed in bed staring at the ceiling. Not me. I was up at 5 a.m. sitting in a Starbucks across from the office, watching the building. I didn't need to be inside to know exactly what was happening. The Carrington merger wasn't just a deal, it was a delicate ecosystem of legal filings and encrypted data rooms. Sarah didn't have the encryption keys. She didn't even have the password to my local drive because Marcus, in his rush to be the alpha, had revoked my admin access before I could hand them over. I took a sip of my black coffee and checked my phone. My former coworker, Mike, was blowing up my texts. "Dude, where are you? Sarah is literally screaming at the IT guy because she can't find the Q3 ledger. Marcus is white as a ghost. I didn't reply. You don't talk to the crew of a sinking ship when you're the one who pulled the plug. By 10 a.m., I was in the office of Miller and Vance, the city's most aggressive employment and corporate litigation firm. My lawyer, a woman named Elena, who looked like she ate sharks for breakfast, went through my thumb drive. You're telling me, Elena said, pointing at a spreadsheet, that Marcus diverted $3 million in client management fees into a shell company registered in his girlfriend's name? Not just registered, I clarified. The shell company's address is her Pilates studio. Elena leaned back, a predatory smile spreading across her face. This isn't just a wrongful termination suit for retaliation. This is a whistleblower bounty. If the SEC recovers those funds based on your evidence, you're entitled to up to 30% of the fines. I wasn't just getting my job back. I was getting a retirement fund. But I didn't want the money yet. I wanted the spectacle. Back at the office, the synergy Sarah promised was turning into a Category 5 hurricane. I knew exactly what was happening in the conference room. The Carrington representatives, the kind of guys who wear $3,000 suits and smell like old money, were sitting there waiting for the final audit sign-off. Sarah would have walked in, smelling like expensive perfume and overconfidence. She would have tried to pivot and circle back when asked about the $2.1 million discrepancy in the escrow account. But Carrington's lawyers weren't the IT guys. They weren't intimidated by her. My phone buzzed again. A frantic call from Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. Hey, it's Marcus. Look, we might have moved a bit fast yesterday. Sarah's having some trouble accessing the legacy files. Just give me a call. We can talk about a consulting fee. A big one. Consulting fee? Yesterday, I was traditional and holding them back. Today, I was the only person who could keep him out of a jumpsuit. I didn't call him back. Instead, I sent one email. Not to Marcus, but to the lead partner at Carrington. Subject: Due diligence alert. Miller and Associates. Attachment: Forensic audit of escrow. Account 402. Message: You might want to ask Sarah why $3 million of your investment is currently paying for a Pilates studio in the Hamptons. I hit send. 10 minutes later, I saw 3 black SUVs pull up to the front of the office building. They weren't the police, not yet. They were the SEC compliance team I had alerted the day before. They don't knock, they don't circle back, they come with subpoenas and the authority to freeze every asset in the building. I walked back toward the building, not as an employee, but as a citizen witness. I stood across the street as the Carrington team stormed out of the lobby, their faces red with rage. The merger was dead. The $40 million deal was a corpse on the floor. Then came Marcus. He was being escorted out by his own security, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 24 hours. Sarah was behind him, crying, her designer bag swinging wildly as she tried to hide her face from the cameras. Marcus saw me. He stopped dead. The realization hit him like a freight train. He realized that firing me wasn't a restructuring. It was the worst business decision of his life. You did this, he hissed, his voice trembling. I adjusted my coat and checked my watch. No, Marcus, I said loud enough for the SEC. The following weeks weren't a trial. I just followed the compliance manual. Firm that didn't know it was dead yet. It's on page 42. When you involve the SEC and the Department of Justice, they don't just look at the one file you gave them. They perform a financial autopsy. They opened up every cabinet, every encrypted drive, and every offshore tax strategy Marcus had ever touched. I spent my mornings in wood-paneled conference rooms, sipping expensive water and explaining to federal agents exactly how Marcus and Sarah had been washing the company's operating budget to fund a lifestyle that their salaries couldn't touch. 6 months later, we were in the federal courthouse. Marcus looked smaller. His bespoke Italian suits didn't fit anymore. He'd lost the CEO weight and replaced it with the gaunt look of a man facing 20 to life. Sarah was there too, but she wasn't smirking. She was sitting 3 rows behind Marcus, and they weren't speaking. Funny how eternal love evaporates when there's a shared indictment on the table. Her defense was my favorite part. She claimed she was just a girlfriend and didn't understand the documents she was signing. The prosecutor didn't buy it. He held up the shell company registration for the Pilates studio. "Ms. Reed," he said, "you might not understand accounting, but surely you understand that $3 million doesn't just appear in your business account because of good vibes." Then came my turn. I took the stand. Marcus tried to stare me down, but I didn't look at him. I looked at the jury. I walked them through the shadow folders I'd discovered. I explained how they'd used a layering technique, moving money through 5 different sub-accounts before it landed in Sarah's studio. It was sophisticated enough to fool a junior auditor, but too sloppy to survive someone who actually knew the software. The hammer didn't just fall, it crushed them. Marcus, convicted on 5 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of embezzlement. 10 years, no parole. Sarah, convicted as an accessory. 5 years of probation and a total seizure of all assets linked to the fraud. The Pilates studio, auctioned off. The corner office, empty. The queen was broke, and the king was in a jumpsuit that wasn't bespoke. A year to the day after I was fired, I received a wire transfer. Because I had filed as an official SEC whistleblower, I was awarded 25% of the recovered funds and the fines levied against the firm. After taxes and legal fees, I walked away with $4.2 million. I didn't buy a Ferrari. I didn't buy a Pilates studio. I bought the small boutique firm that Marcus used to call his biggest rival. I hired the 3 best analysts he'd fired over the years to make room for his cronies. We don't have synergy meetings. We don't have visionary consultants. We just have a very strict policy about the compliance manual. I recently saw a news clip of Sarah working at a high-end mall. She was folding shirts in a store that used to be one of her favorites. She saw the camera and turned away. I turned off the TV and looked at my watch. It was 9:02 a.m., time to get to work. Marcus thought he was playing chess while I was playing checkers. He forgot that in the real world, the person who keeps the books holds the power. He wanted to promote his girlfriend? He did. He promoted her all the way to a federal indictment. As for me, I'm doing just fine. Because at the end of the day, the truth doesn't just set you free, it pays remarkably well,